Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Thanksgiving live session. We are in week 8, and I know everyone's preparing for their Thanksgiving festivities. So I'm going to go through with our live session. Now, this week, we're going to kick everything off right. We do know that if you're missing any knowledge checks, you're applying reflection, work on those. And all of this is going to prepare you for your feedback, but not just that. Think about it. In 3 weeks, you're going to be taking your final. So for everyone watching the live session, this discussion forum is slightly different than what you're accustomed to. It's more trying to find out how you're feeling about the program. So I have 3 questions that I would like you guys to answer. Number 1, what made you choose the HIT program? Number 2, what do you like about the HIT program? And number 3, what do you feel students should know about the program before they start it? All right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into our math trivia. How many colors are needed on a map to make sure that no borders will share a color? Fun fact, the answer is 4. And math is like going to the gym for your brain. It sharpens your mind. All right, now let's get into chapter 9. We are talking about statistic computed within the health information management departments. Basically, this is how we do it. Now, our learning objectives are, we're going to be looking at full-time equivalent employees, FTEs. We're going to be talking about budgets and fiscal years and variances and variance analysis and payback periods. We're also going to differentiate between an operational and a capital budget. And then we're going to look at various statistics. We're going to finish up talking about the development of appropriate statistics that is used in management of an HIM department. Now, as we begin, we look at health information statistics. We start off with our FTEs. We look at our annual compensation of each employee. Now, it's calculated by multiplying the number of hours worked per year. So ideally 2,080 for a full-time employee by the hourly wage. And then we multiply that number by the percentage of benefits received. Now, the formula for full-time equivalent or FTE is 2,080 hours times hourly wage equals annual salary times amount of percentage of benefits equals your annual compensation. I felt like that was a lot. But we also look at our unit labor cost, and you see it's determined by dividing the total annual compensation by total annual productivity. We look at our formula, total sum of your annual compensation divided by total sum of annual productivity equals amount / your unit. So we're jumping right into examples, okay? You have 2 full-time coding professionals in the HIM department. Each codes 20 records per day. So we look, one employee earns $15 per hour and is paid an annual salary of $31,200. The other employee earns $15.65 per hour and is paid an annual salary of $32,552. Now, what is the labor cost for these 2 professionals? So I put my notes in blue. So the first thing we do is determine the annual productivity by multiplying the number of records coded by the 2 employees, 20 per day per coding professional, or 40 per day by the number of work days in the year. Ideally, we're talking about the US workday. So we're looking at 5 work days per week times 52 weeks per year equals 260 work days. Now, keep in mind, this calculation does not include paid time off, so no PTO, right? So we have our 260 work days times 20 records equals 10,400 records coded per year. Then we determine the cost, determine the unit cost, right? So then we add the two salaries. You have your 31,200 plus 32,552 equaling 63,752. Finally, we divide the total number of records coded by the 2 employees in 1 year. Your unit labor cost is 63,732 divided by 10,400, giving us a $6.13 per record unit cost. For our next, we're looking at an analyst. He's compensated at $14.50 per hour, and he analyzes 6 records per hour. What is his unit labor cost? We're going to determine the employee's annual productivity. We're going to multiply the 6 records per hour by the 2,080 worked hours per year. Okay, giving us 12,480 records. Then we determine the employee's annual productivity. We multiply the 6 records per hour. We get $14.50 times 2,080 hours, giving us 30,160. 30,160 divided by 12,480 equals 2,416, or $2.42 per record. Now, we calculate the cost per request based on the statistics in the table that follows. So you're looking at how much everything is per each item, okay? And you see that at the bottom, the total says $8.30. But how did I get that? Well, what you do is you add the 124 plus the 61 cents plus the 30 cents plus the 22 cents plus the 5.92, which gives you $8.29 rounded to $8.30. So this one's more of a, I see everything, I'm just going to add it up. Now, keep in mind, you still had to figure out what each per unit was. And you do that by taking the amount. For example, we'll start with the first one. Postage was 510. You see, I did the examples here. And I divided that by the average per month, which was 410. And that's how I got the cost per request for each one. And then you simply add those up to get the total cost, which was $8.30. Not too bad yet, right? So we also look at productivity. Now, here you see that a unit of performance defined by management in a quantitative standards. We're looking at a ratio to measure how well an organization converts inputs into outputs. Most health information departments have productivity standards for different areas in their department. For example, the coding section, they have a productivity standard that may be that employees should code 4 inpatient records per hour. Or in a 7.5-hour workday, taking into account breaks that employees will take, that would be a 30 inpatient record per day. There are factors that do influence decisions. Other task coders, such as abstracting, maybe they're answering the phone or getting additional information that's taking them away from that coding number, right? And there are types of records coded for like a long LOS, or maybe there's a difficult clinical case that's going to take a little bit extra time. So these are things that we do put into account. 2 simple formulas. You have your completed work, which is the total work output minus the effective work. And then you have your labor productivity. This one is the completed work divided by hours worked to really produce total work output. So in example 4, you have a community physician clinic, a large clinic with 85 providers, experiences 1,500 patient encounters per day. A coding professional is expected to code 150 records per day. What you're going to do is determine, or what we're going to do is determine the number of coding professionals that are actually needed to complete the task. So we have the required number of FTEs equals number of encounters. We look at our productivity. My numbers all over the place. And number of encounters, 150, 1,500. And the productivity is 150, letting us know that we need at least 10 coding professionals. Now, you also see that hospital HIM departments often use discharges as their method to really determine inpatient staffing levels. Okay. And I know this looks kind of crazy, but it's number of encounters, which is 1,500, divided by your productivity, which was 150, giving us our 10 coding professionals. I just wanted to clear that up because that looks kind of offset on the slide. Now, there are 3 ways to audit records. In front of you, you see, you can perform 100% review of records coded. You can perform a review of records coded chosen through a random sample, or you can use a fixed sampling random sample to audit. Now, this requires the manager to really select a fixed percent of total records for each employee to kind of review. Like, here's your 100, here's your 100, here's your 100. Using a predetermined quality standard, work is checked and it's classified as either completed or defective. Additional records really should be reviewed by the manager, especially if there needs to be like additional information to really determine the type of defect, or until all the records have really been reviewed. Now, we look at our staffing levels. Often, especially when you're working in retail, even in hospitals, trying to determine how many staff you need at a certain time frame. We look at patient encounters per full-time equivalent FTE per month. Now, patient encounter equals any personal contact between a patient and or physician, other person who is authorized to furnish healthcare services for the diagnoses of a treatment of a patient. Many include laboratory services, x-rays, and things like that. In our example, we have at Community Hospital, the new HIM director wants to determine the number of employees needed in a coding section. She knows that the average number of inpatient records coded is 6 per hour. Now, the hospital discharges an average of 65 patients per day. How many FTEs are required for inpatient coding? One thing that we have to assume that the FTEs work 7.5 hours per day, and then we got to round that number to 2 decimals. So we have 6 records per hour times 7.5 hours per day equals 45 records. Next, we divide the number of discharges per day by the number of records coded per FTE. Here we have the number of encounters divided by productivity rate. So you have 65 over 45, giving us 1.44. A 44% part-time employee would work 40 hours a week times 0.44, meaning for that part-time employee, we only need them for 17.6 hours per week. Okay. The other thing we do is we determine by dividing the number of inpatient counters by how much productivity is going on. We look at the formula. Patient encounters divided by productivity equals the number of FTEs needed. Here we have an HIM director who would like to know how many FTEs are needed to analyze the weekly discharges in her facility. There are 350 discharges per week. It takes one employee 15 minutes to code and analyze one record. Now, using a productive week as 37.5, which is 7.5 times 5 days, the director determines that she will need 2.3 employees to really analyze the week's discharge. 15 minutes. And you'll notice that I highlight these in different colors. Times 350 says records, but discharges gives you 5,250 minutes. 5,250 minutes divided by your 60 minutes in 1 hour, 87.5. 87.5 divided by 37.5 gives you your 2.3 employees. And if you're wondering where these 37.5 productive hours come from, remember 37.5 is at 7.5 times 5 days. All right. Now, other things that we look at is budgets. We're talking about wages, benefits, supplies. Maybe we need individuals to travel for something, membership dues, subscriptions, postage, yes, even postage, copying paper, equipment, maintenance, and there are so many other expenses that we have to take into account when we're looking at the budget. So estimates are also made of revenues that are coming into the health information department. Estimates may include release of information, either outsourced coding or even transcriptions. Budgets are made for the fiscal year. A consecutive 12-month period is used by an organization in an accounting period. So they're not just doing a budget like, oh, we're good for this month, we'll see what happens next month. We're actually looking at an entire calendar year or 12 months. So we have our operational budget, the amount of money needed to run our business, but there are variances. So when we talk about a variance, we're looking at the difference between what was budgeted and what we actually spent, our actual expenses. Kind of like when you're doing your own budget. A disagreement could happen between two different parts we're looking at. Now, this information can be used to monitor the activities of the department. For example, the x-ray department's like, we need this brand new x-ray machine. I priced it out. It's only going to cost us $15,000. And the manager was like, man, that's a great deal. Go ahead, I'm gonna sign off for it. However, when the actual x-ray machine comes in, it ended up being $100,000 because the one that they were looking at happened to be that only one on sale and it was already sold. All right, just an example. Now, we look at the variance formula. You have your actual amount spent minus amount budgeted equals your variance. Pretty simple chart. I love it. Here we're determining the percent budget variance for each of the departments listed in the table that follows, round to 1 decimal place. So we're looking at supplies. We budgeted for 3,000, but we actually spent 4. So we're in the whole 1,000 on that particular one. And then in training, we budgeted for 1,000, but we spent 2. So what are we going to do with this information? We're going to use the information in the table to really determine the variance for supplies for each one. Now for supplies, we had a variance amount of 1,000. We take the 1,000 divided by 3,000 and gives us 0.33. Or a negative 33.3%. Remember, it says round to 1 decimal place. Now for training, it's a little bit different and you're looking at, well, they both have a variance of 1,000. However, what was budgeted? okay? Here, we had a variance of a negative 1,000 divided by 200 is negative 0.500. Rounding to one decimal place, we're at negative 50.0%, okay? We also look at our capital budget. Equipment for health information, for example. High dollar, like that X-ray machine I was telling you about. A faculty will define what a high dollar item is though, okay? For example, purchases maybe over 500 for a smaller facility. The item usually has a life of more than 1 year. So we have to justify the cost. Like you can't just say, I want it, it'll look good in our department. Okay, but what's the benefit for the department, for the facility? How is it going to help us to bring in more patients, quality care? You look at the payback period. How long will it take to recover the costs? And then we look at our formula. You have your total cost of a project divided by annual incremental cash inflow. You also look at your annual incremental cash inflow, the savings that the department will realize. Yes, this is the right purchase. I know it's big dollar now, but the benefits outweigh what we're going to spend initially. Now, for the cost justification, this is the conventional task of quantifying benefits, savings, and then comparing them with what we purchased, what we paid for, and seeing whether or not there is some type of reward from us purchasing this high amount or high quality, high priced item. Now, where our project is going to last a number of years, we talk about present worth presentations, calculations, that's going to be used to compare 1 year with another to allow that time value of money. We also look at what's called return on investments. You've heard that before, where we're talking about the rate at which cash is recovered from an investment. We look at our formula, the annual incremental cash inflow, total cost of the project. Should be cost inflow. Now, here we're looking at a copy machine. It costs $3,000, and the department will realize a saving of $1,000 per year. But we got to calculate that payback period for the new copy machine, and then we're going to round to one decimal place. So you have your payback period. You have your $3,000, the cost of the machine, over $1,000 per year. In about 3 years, we'll be good to go. Now, in this particular exercise, we are looking at what you're going to be expected to complete in your apply and reflect. Here you have a community hospital. Each full-time employee is required to work that 2,080 hours annually. The table that follows shows the amount of time that 5 employees were absent from work over the past year. What we're doing is we're answering the questions below and assuming that all employees worked 2,080 hours. We're using leading zeros and rounding to 2 decimal places. So we're going to look at the sick leave rate for employee A. Six leave hours were used, divided by that 2,080 hours annually, equals 0.0028. Multiplying by that 100, 0.288. We're rounding to 2 decimal places, 0.29. Now, you also have another exercise where you have your questions and you're figuring out, in this case, the average number of records coded by each coding professional, kind of like the example we did in the live session. In September, the hospital had 3 coding professionals who coded 1,500 inpatient records and 22 of the records failed the quality screens. What is the average number of records coded by each coding professional? Here we have 1,500 inpatient records divided by 3 coding professionals, letting us know that, okay, we have 500 records. Was the average number of records coded by each coding professional? Now, what percentage of records pass the quality screen? Round to 2 decimal places. Here, we have your 1,500 inpatient records minus your 22 failed records, giving you 1,478. 1,478 divided by 1,500 gives you 0.98533 times 100, 98.533. We want 2 decimal place, 98.53%. Letting us know that, okay, 22 failed, but we have a rate of 98.53%. That did indeed pass. So you have 10 questions with your apply and reflect, all right? Take your time, read through them. Also, I like to throw in some knowledge checks. You know that these are random knowledge checks from this particular week, and let's get into it. If an analyst is compensated at $14.50 per hour and analyzes 6 records per hour, what is the unit labor cost? You have $2.15 per record, $2.42 per record, $2.50 per record, or $2.30 per record. First thing that you need to do is, what is the information that we need to figure out this particular problem? We know that there are $14.50 per record and 6 records per hour. The correct answer is $2.42 per record. How did I get to that? Well, you have your $14.50 per record divided by 6 records per hour. It gives you or 2.416. The 6 takes that 1, rounds it up to $2.42 per record or per unit labor cost. And performance improvement activities are crucial in helping ensure that the department is functioning at optimal level. So it's kind of breather, true or false. Professional improvement activities are crucial in helping ensure that the department is functioning at optimal level. And hopefully you chose true. All right. I know that this, like I mentioned in the beginning, is the beginning of Thanksgiving, spending time with family, being thankful for everything that you have. We had our math trivia. How many colors are needed on a map to make sure that no border will share a color? The answer was 4, which I thought was pretty interesting. And math is like going to the gym for your brain. It sharpens your mind. For those who are watching the playback, your discussion questions different, like I mentioned earlier. What made you choose the HIT program? What do you like about the HIT program? And what do you feel students coming into our program should know about the program? We went over Chapter 9, looking at statistics computed within the Health Information Management Department. We talked about FTEs and unit labor costs. We are down to the final stages of the module. I urge you to continue to work hard and work on any missing assignments. Please, please, please have a safe and fun Thanksgiving. Please keep in mind that we're coming up on week 9 already, and we are getting closer and closer and closer to the finish line. I'm cheering you on. I see that light. Let's finish strong. If you do have any questions or concerns, do not hesitate to reach out. All right. Be safe and see everyone who can attend at next week's live session.